Hello, lovely folks at YouTube. Ren here. So we are outside on this lovely day after Imbolc. It is 70 degrees here in Virginia. There's a little bit of a breeze, so if you see the camera shaking, that's because it is picking my tripod a little bit. But seeing as how it's immediately after Imbolc, I wanted to talk about one of the major things that I do immediately after Imbolc during this time of year. That is pruning. Pruning is, for most plants, best done at this time of year. Simply because it's before they break dormancy. You want to get them before that sap flow really starts and the leaves start to leaf out, because that energy is still sort of contained in the dormant roots and stems, and you want that energy to go only into those things that you want to grow. You want to take off the things you don't want to grow before that time. There are exceptions, of course. One of the things that we absolutely do not prune at this time of year is maples. If you know anything about how maple syrup is made, you would understand why the sap flow is so strong. Anything that you cut off at this point will just become a bleeding point for that tree in the springtime, and we don't want that to happen. So maples are an exception, but for most other plants in my yard, this is the time of year that I'm pruning them. So the goal with pruning is always to produce a plant that will be healthier after the pruning than it was before. This is a partnership. It's not something that I just go in and hack things off willy-nilly. I take the time to look at the tree or the bush, examine where the problem points might be, and remove those things that could cause a problem in the future so that the plant can grow stronger and healthier. This is always something that I do with the utmost respect. I never take more than I have to, and I always make sure that what I do take off the plant gets repurposed in some way. I do tend to talk to my plants as well. I think that it's really beneficial to them to just kind of tell them what's going on, what's happening, and kind of give them a heads up. So this is something that ideally we would do in order to mimic the way that the plants would be kind of shorn back in the wild. In the wild, you would have animals that would be grazing on them. You would have wind and storms that would be kind of breaking off branches. And my notes are blowing down over here. So our goal is basically to try and mimic that as close as we can, take off just what needs to be taken off, and leave as much of the plant as possible. So I'm going to show you some of my tools that we have here that I use for this. This is the most common tool that I use. These are my pruners. These are bypass pruners, and they're called that because you can see the blade and the little bottom portion here sort of bypass each other like a pair of scissors. I find these to be far superior than the other style of pruners, which are sometimes called anvil pruners. They have a blade that sort of goes down onto a flat block. It tends to crush the stem a bit more, and it's harder to get a very close cut with these. So these I can get the blade right next to where I want it to cut, and they're my preferred style of pruners. These pruners are best for branches that are really up to about the thickness of my pinky. Maybe if I push it, I can go as thick as my thumb, but no thicker than that. This is a slightly bigger style. This is called the lopper, and you can see it's basically just a bypass pruner on a big lever arm. This is for pruning those larger branches. They can go up to about 2 inches in diameter, I believe. Basically, it has to be able to fit into this little cup here, and then it's a good size for the loppers. I haven't used these yet. These are actually new to me. I got these on clearance, so very excited to finally have those. I used to have a pair, lent them to a neighbor, and then that neighbor moved away, and I never got them back. So this is my other, probably my most used tool for pruning, though. This is my pruning saw. This is a folding style, so it's actually like a big jackknife. Easier for storage, easier for carrying around. You can see it has these very deep serrated teeth that are really good for sawing wood. They don't produce a very fine, smooth cut the way that you would with like a woodworking saw, but they do make a very fast cut, which is probably more ideal for something when you're working out in the yard. You don't want to be sawing away at something for 20 minutes. You want it to be done in 2 minutes, and that's it. So those are my primary tools that I use. I do also have another tool that I'm not showing you. I haven't used it in some time, and that is a pole pruner. And basically what it is, it's a combination of pruning saw and loppers that are positioned on the end of an extendable pole that can go up to 15 feet long. That's designed for pruning way up in those really tall trees I used to use it back when I had a big oak tree in my front yard, but we had to have that tree removed recently because it had rotted all the way down the center and it was a danger to my house. So those are my basic tools. I'm actually going to, hopefully for the first time ever, do some editing in this video. So we're going to do a little quick cut over here, and we're going to get you close to one of my apple trees so I can show you exactly where and how I would prune those. So this is one of my smaller apple trees. This is my Arkansas Black. This one does not need a lot of pruning because it's still very young. Most of these branches are in the place and in the shape that I want them to grow. This has been a very well-behaved tree for me. However, this tree does have, you can see this little branch here, this is what we call a whip. And this branch right here is growing straight up, whereas you can see a lot of the other branches kind of curve outwards. This one just kind of goes straight up. It's a very flexible branch. This is not good for fruit production. And it's also, you can see where it's really, really close. These two are really close. If I were to leave this branch over the summertime, these two would rub together and they would open a wound in the bark of both of them that could be a vector for where disease or fungus can enter the tree. It's kind of like a cut in the skin of the tree. We don't want that to happen. So we're going to take this little whip off. And the way that we want to do that is we want to cut it as close to what we call the branch collar as possible. Probably hard to see. There's a little ring down here at the bottom where the branch kind of grows off of this other branch, and this is called the branch collar. And I'm going to cut it right above that little ring right there. So I'm going to get my bypass pruners here and position my blade right outside of that branch collar and just give it a snip. There we go. That's pruned off. This could probably be trimmed down just a little bit on that one edge as well. The reason I'm cutting this as close as I can, so that little branch collar has a lot of growing bark in it, and it will actually grow over where I've made that cut and seal it closed. So if you leave a stump sticking out, it's not going to be able to grow over and seal that over. If you cut it too close, where you cut away that branch collar, it's just going to leave a big open wound that has a hard time closing up as well. So you do want to leave that little nub of the branch collar behind so that the tree can seal itself over, but no more than that. And I think you're looking good, my friend. That's all I needed to take this year. Okay, so this one's a little bit larger. This is my black elder, and it's kind of hard to see. I'm doing it on the selfie stick now, but it's grown like some of these very long whippy branches like this that we need to actually cut down. I have done this in years past. What I'm doing is I'm going to take down, see on this branch here, like towards the end, it's very flexible and just breaks very easily. I actually just broke that, which is good reason for me to prune it off. Whereas further up here, I can push on it and it's not breaking, it's a lot stronger growth. So I'm going to take off that very weak growth at the end and leave the very strong growth. It will also encourage it to grow more outward rather than upward, give it a better shape, help to shade the roots a little better, because this is a plant that likes to have its roots be cool and wet, so it will actually help the plant to prune some of that off. When I do prune this one, you can see these little growth buds here that look kind of like they alternate on either side. And I'm going to prune it right above where one of these growth buds happen, because these growth buds right here also function very similarly to the branch collars on the trees. Pruning it here will cause that callus to form over the cut and over the following spring and summer, which will help to protect the plant. And then these little buds here will actually be encouraged to grow outwards more. A lot of bushes and plants have something called apical dominance, which is where the bud that's on the very end of a branch will secrete hormones that suppress the growth of the buds further down on the branch. If you remove that end bud through pruning, then it actually encourages more growth of those side branches, and that's actually what we want to achieve with this. You get a fuller, healthier plant by removing those end buds, so it actually is good for the plant in the long run, and that's basically what we're going to do with this one. So this is the last one I wanted to show you. This is my crepe myrtle tree. This is one that I don't need to do any pruning on currently, but I wanted to show you the end result of a lot of the pruning I've done. So you can see this is one that I had to do a lot of limbing up on when I first moved into this house almost 15 years ago, this tree had just kind of gone haywire. It had trunks all over the place. It was a lot of cross branches, a lot of really unhealthy growth on this tree that I had to remove. You can see here, this is one of the branches that I removed, and you can see that branch collar is starting to fill in over the top. This one here is one that I removed many years ago, and it has completely grown over and sealed itself in new bark. This is the end result of what we want. This I just took off last year, so this is about a year's worth of growth on here. This one was about 3 years ago. So this is our end goal right here, which is why we try to remove these branches as close to the branch collar without removing the branch collar itself. So we get this nice, healthy, sealed area where there can't be any diseases or insects that take advantage of our trees. So I am looking at this. I do see a little bit further up. I don't know if you can see it. I don't think I'm going to be able to angle it up, but I can see there's a little bit of, there's a cross branch here and a little bit of winter damage that I do need to probably prune out. That is something I'll probably need to pull out the pole pruner to do, because it is a little above my head, and that's not safe to do with a pruning saw by hand. But that's not something I'll bore you with. I'm sure you don't want to watch me saw away at a branch for 20 minutes, so I just wanted to kind of show you some of these prunings that I've done and just how it's done, and give you an idea of why it's done as well. Ultimately, we are looking at just furthering the health and survival of our plants, doing this in a partnership with them, just making them be the best they can be while still fitting into the space, because ultimately we are the creators and masters of our own yards. So it is a partnership, but it is more of a benevolent dictatorship than anything else. So at least that's how gardens work. Gardens are different from the wild. In the wild, the plants rule, but here I ultimately dictate how things go. So, well, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you get some use out of this, and I will see you again next time.